go. Wow. To all my peeps out there, welcome to ABCD, American-born Chatty Desis. As your co-host, I'm a co-host this week, but I'm going to be introducing my fellow totally equal co-host this time. There's no host co-host. We'll talk about that in a second, but he is a demigod in his own right, whose only specific power is that his morning breath smells like orange starburst. Ladies and gentlemen, Omar Najam.
I think that's a symptom of diabetes.
The diabetes? Oh, boy.
And folks, I would love to introduce my other totally equal co-host this week, amateur balloonist, who unfortunately this week lost 3 balloons to the U.S. military government.
They weren't spy balloons. They were just regular balloons.
It's Sandeep Parikh.
How am I ever going to go pro now? Now that my hobby is a target. Like, this is... Okay, so those of you wondering, what is this co-host host business? Well, we're going to play... we're going to have a debate death match later, and whoever wins that debate death match becomes the host, and the loser becomes co-host. But last week we had a tie for the first time, so now we are on equal footings. So we are, co-hosts. This is a beautiful thing.
Joining us for the first time, and you're like, I wonder what the tie was. two equally popular options that would be obviously tied by the end.
Yeah,
it was the sports of football and kabaddi. So we coming into it, we should have known this was going to be a 50-50 issue.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, viewership is equal. And yeah, I just like to think that it's clear. Kabaddi's on the rise and football's going down. So in a way, I feel like it was a victory because I was obviously on kabaddi side. But this is good. I think we needed this, Omar. Like me and you, kind of like coming together to level set and make sure that our relationship is still cool.
Can we pitch to a network Friday Night Lights, but it's kabaddi, where it's a really deep speech, a really motivational speech, and then it ends with just like, anyway, boys, kabaddi, and just like running off into the field.
Yeah, exactly. This Thursday at 7:30, check out Out of Breath, the show that brings kabaddi madness to life. Yeah, I love it. Hey, what's this show? Let's talk about this show.
Let's talk about
Our show is ABCD, American-born Chatty Desis. It's a podcast within a live stream, within our lives as 2 American-born Desis. It's a pod duckin'. This is for anyone out there who, like Omar and I, are navigating our cultural identities and just kind of want to chat it out, man.
Yes. And folks, we even have a pseudo format to all of this, a pod in 3 acts, if you will. Act 1, we start with a Chucker check-in, where we hone in on a topic that's currently affecting our alignments. Today's is, how much Desi do we put in our stories? Is it changing? How are we avoiding tropes or pandering? That brings us to Act 2, where we'll pit our American-born side against our Desi side in our death match debate. This week, we're going straight for the heart of the matter. We're arguing, and I don't think it's been revealed yet, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, hey, folks, we're arguing polytheism versus monotheism.
We're going for it.
Gods versus God.
Oh, I love that. That's my favorite. Gods versus God, baby. Let's do this.
And then finally, we wrap it all up by nominating our Desi of the week, and then Blammo podcast is over, and you can live the rest of your life feeling a little bit more buoyant, like one of Sandeep's balloons that have been shot down by a $2 million missile.
Wow. So you just want to hurt me every time you bring it up. Hey, and we also have sponsors. DesiQuest is our first sponsor. Isn't that convenient?
What?
It's an actual play TTRPG set in a South Asian mythological inspired universe built by Jasmine, that bronze girl Buller, who is apparently streaming against us right now. Okay, sorry. Stick to the script, man. Come on. It's got a great cast that includes Critical Role darling Anjali Bhimani, Dimension 20 darling Rekha Shankar, and 2 more darlings, me and Omar. For more info on that and to get on our mailing list, hit up DesiQuest.com. That's DesiQuest.com. Or click the link in our show notes. And our next sponsor is you. Oh, man. Get it? Do you get it, Omar? I'm asking if you get it.
I get it.
You get it.
Yeah.
But in this case, yeah, you should get it because it's true. We have Patreons that help us keep the lights on here. And look at all these fancy graphics that Delvin's putting on. We need some help with that. So look, you can support us by hitting up our Patreon on EffinFunny. Patreon.com/EffinFunny. Yeah, do that, and then I can be singing your name in the credits. Because who doesn't want to make that credit that song longer than the podcast? That's my dream. Is that someday that the song of names becomes longer than the podcast itself? I think we could do it. I believe in us.
So let's do it, folks. Let's kick it off. Let's enter our chakra check-in. Oh God, I love that sound so much.
Oh, it's the brown note. I always poop a little when that sound comes.
I was targeting the taint chakra when I selected that one.
I know.
Right to the source. So we're going to chat about including Desi culture in our second gen stories as it relates to our chakras, which ones we activate, which ones we think about, and the general conversation that allows. So when we are creating characters, making comedy, making creative choices, putting words into a script, how much Desi do you put into your stuff, Sandeep?
This is like, I'm like a little scared to talk about this in a way. Yeah, like I'm scared. I'm also excited. Like this to me is like the thematically for my life, like the essential question in this sort of like moment in my life. Because I don't know how you grew up, but I grew up with this like deep imposter syndrome, and not the like performer imposter syndrome that I think that a lot of folks in our industry have. I have imposter syndrome just about like being Indian, like when I really dig at it, it's like the place that I feel the most uncomfortable is rolling up, in like going to India.
Yeah.
And being immediately spotted as an NRI and feeling just like not comfortable in my own actual skin.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, do you feel that or?
100%. I for my own stuff, it's always interesting because like when my family's weird. I think that's a great way to put it. My family's a very odd family. My mom is from India and she's Hindu. My dad is from Pakistan and he's Muslim. They met in England when they were both working for Texas Instruments. My mom is a painter and is often mistaken for being a Hispanic woman. And my father is Bilbo Baggins. So
wow. I love Pakistani born Bilbo Baggins. That I want to see that reboot. That will piss everyone off for like, look at all that, go broke. Anyway, sorry.
The idea of Pakistani Bilbo Baggins doing the riddles in the dark, which is like, tell me a riddle. I've got so many. So many.
Yeah. I'll tell you, the greatest riddle of my life is how to raise a son. God. How
Gollum leaving feeling so like just depressed and judged.
Yeah.
Like, I'll never be good enough. Like,
oh man.
But in that, like, anytime in like when I would visit cousins and would go to weddings and stuff like that, and people are just like, oh yeah, Indian dances and stuff. I was like, I don't know anything but Doctor Who reruns on PBS. That's my Indian culture. Is like, it's a very confused and like stilted version of it. So I have that. Like I do when people are like more in stuff and everything, like culturally speaking, I've always been like, oh yeah, I don't know. My family's really weird.
So I wonder if you sort of align with this too. Like, so to that end, for the first, say, 20 years of my career, I know I look ravishingly young, but
so when you were 4,
yeah, when I was 4, sure, and like, I really stayed away from it. I really tried to. I just felt like I wasn't an authoritative voice. I would be immediately called out or seen as an imposter or someone who wasn't, I didn't deserve to write about this stuff. I was born and raised in New Hampshire.
Mhm.
I speak the language kind of like, so. Yeah, I'm in the I understand it more than I could speak at camp.
Mhm.
And so this whole subject really hits me in the heart chakra. But lately, I've been coming around to this idea that like, hey, wait, my form of Indian culture is just as valid as anybody else's.
Yes.
And by the way, someone asked what's an NRI in chat, and that's a non-resident Indian.
Yeah.
So it's sort of it's not even a term that I think that's used as much anymore. But it's just sort of denotes that like you look like a duck and walk like a duck, but you can't quack. And so I think by virtue of that, I always felt like I couldn't really utilize the culture in a way, even though I do have very, very religious parents. They were raised in, like, I went to temple all the time. I had my own experience, and I'm coming around to this idea that like, wait, this is totally valid. I can and should write about this, and even write about this anxiety that I have. And this is part of why I'm doing this podcast. This is part of why I am producing DesiQuest. Not part of why. I think this is like 90% why I'm doing all this stuff, is to explore this anxiety, because I feel like I'm not the only one, and I feel like doing this will level me up and will be therapeutic for those that feel the same way, and that hopefully we can find a community in this. Like, that's truly what I want out of this.
So for you, it's heart chakra, right? You're saying?
Oh yeah, this is right there in the Anahata chakra. It's like love and acceptance and compassion and kindness. I think that's the premise of this chakra. So
Right.
that's 100% where it hits me. Does it hit you in any other one, or what's your story?
It's, you know what, I'm with this project specifically. Not specifically, especially with this project. I think that for me, normally, it's all crown. Like, it's very. I think to me, it's sort of like it's almost a little bit removed, a little top
spiritual?
down, a little spiritual. Yeah, like that's a way that I think I am more, or like the most, like, whenever I talk about this stuff, it is more of like historically and philosophically, of like my sort of like Desi like identity. And then every so often, like, I'll go, like, then I'll also be like, we're late all the time or something like that. And I'm like, yeah. But like, for the most part, that's how I will relate. It has helped me liberate myself from a lot of expectations that I think I got stuck in when I was only focusing on my American born side. When I would be like, oh, this is how films are made, and this is how I have to be. People would be like, we need you to be the next Steven Spielberg or whatever when it comes to filmmaking. You know, growing up in the 90s, everyone only knew one filmmaker, Steven Spielberg, and that's what everyone said at parties. Like, oh, you'll be the next Steven Spielberg. Yeah. And I think learning more about like my Desi side, that liberated me from a lot of the expectations of like the American confines, where suddenly I was like, oh, but I could be anyone. Like, I could be like Satyajit Ray, I could be, you know, Mariner, anyone from my background or that collective culture, and it felt like a nice other place to access.
Or the man that was dubbed by Time, I think it was Time Magazine, as the next Spielberg, and then I think that cursed his career. M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah, there's other options, I suppose. Whenever people are like the next Steven Spielberg, I like to go, no, the next Dinesh D'Souza. That's what I'm going for. Yeah.
I'm not gonna even go there. And speaking of third rails, because this is like an interesting topic for me in terms of like because I am writing a lot more Indian American characters, specifically characters that feel like they're between these two worlds and don't know how to navigate it. That's something that I am working out a lot of. I'm trying to stay away from because I feel like we are starting to see it more, right? And I'm trying to stay away from the tropes, you know, the like strict parent. I mean, there's still strict parents and stuff that I do, but like trying to add some more nuance, like maybe getting to know why they are strict, getting to know a little bit more, digging into, you know, where they came from, and so that they don't feel like this like one-dimensional kind of antagonistic relationship that's obvious. Like there's more fluidity to that. I mean, there is in my life too. Like my parents weren't just like right out the gate, like you should never do what you're doing. They were they cried. They literally cried when I told them that I wanted to try being a filmmaker. But the words that they said were, "I'll support you, beta." They cried when they said it. So it was like this more nuanced kind of experience for me, and so I don't know so are you writing stuff with with characters that are South Asian, and how do you sort of avoid the third rails of like either pandering to the audience too much or like kind of like selling out, oh, I'm doing this because that's the hot thing that all the buyers want is diversity, performative diversity.
I think so much of it comes, we both have an improv background, and I feel like with improv, a huge element of it is it's not what joke is like the funniest. It's where's the most material that you can pull from. And there's where like why a lot of the best improv is personal. Because you're just like, it's like a thing where you're like, this is a weird thing about me, but I can talk endlessly about like, I genuinely have this belief in something. Yeah. And I'm going to like, I want to explore my philosophy, and I feel confident enough in, the comedic space to put myself front and center, but I'm not making fun of anyone else but myself in a way where I'm just like, I'm kind of a weird guy. I'm a weird little guy. And so I think for me, like a lot of that stuff comes from like throat chakra, where if I can speak to it, then it's not like in A Court of Fate and Flowers over on Dimension 20. The character Antira is so Desi, but I don't think it's like because it's like you have to be a doctor and like make sure you eat dosa tonight and stuff like that. Right. It was just in the way that I experienced a lot of our cultural expectations and those relationships, but not making it so exclusive and packaged for a non-Desi culture. I was like, if non-Desi people get it and they're interested, great, but I'm not going to stamp like an Indian flag on it and just be like, do you get it? This is the thing, diversity scholarship. Do you like this? Like,
no, but that's, I mean, I feel like you're ahead of the game, as for, I'm like, okay, you got to show off and one up me, fine. You're better at being more authentic, but and that's the Desi achiever, ambition driven dude in me. But I think, I love when you sort of touched upon this idea that like, or at least what came up for me was like, oh yeah, when I started making, DesiQuest and really getting into and seeing the possibilities and it became more real, I realized, oh man, for the first time, I am like making a show where holistically I am the target audience. Like, as like the whole me, not just the part of me that loves dirty jokes and grew up watching South Park. Like the part of me, like this whole other side of me that I think has been relatively untapped. Like, you're so right about the improv thing. Like, I've improvised for 20 years, and
you started when you were 4.
I started at 4, and I mind, like, I feel like I mined so much of my brain already. Like, I find myself, doing characters that I've done before, and like even doing jokes that I've done before, because it's like, oh, that's this, you go to the well kind of a thing. But when we started doing our DesiQuest session zeros, I was like, holy shit, I'm tapping this whole other part of my brain. Yeah. That is just like fertile ground that I was like, I just didn't see. That was right there. And I feel like I have so much to say about it. So I'm excited. So I don't know if this really answers the initial question of like exactly how do I do it? How do we do the Desi culture? I think the first part is just like accepting that my version of Desi culture is enough. And I can just speak to it honestly and put that into my works. And let it be okay that it's not, maybe what's typified as the ideal version of a Desi person,
Yeah, I love that. I think my concluding thought on it is, for me, it still exists as crown chakra, but I would love through the process of DesiQuest for it to be all of them. And for it to be not just one thing for myself, but to be a whole experience. And wow, that's a great way to represent that. That pretty much caps out the segment. That's really good. For those listening on the podcast, we're looking at a rotation of all the chakras together, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. I thought you were just literally, I didn't see that for a second. I was like, oh, wow, Omar really loved his own.
Oh, what I was saying. And you know what? Maybe one day I'll be whole. Holy smokes. What a revelation. Wow. Get this man a podcast.
which I love that. I was like, wow, okay, Omar, hey, be your own champion, you know? Perfect. All right. Now it's time for American Born versus Desi. This is where we pick two related subjects, one with the American flair, the other with an South Asian flair, and we pit them in a debate death match. This week, it's polytheism versus monotheism. I love that we really pause for those sound cues, and basically the difference is pitch. I guess polytheism is higher pitched than monotheism. We're going for it on this one. Gods versus God. Omar and I are going to each take a side. We're going to spit some serious truth bombs, and hopefully we're going to still be alive after a week. I don't know. We'll see.
You know what? I forgot a really important and crucial element to this segment until literally just now, and I can't believe it. We have a rule in this, which is whichever one doesn't win gets erased, and I forgot about that.
Yeah, the stakes are real. The stakes are real. The live audience that is with us today is going to vote via poll. So here's what happens. The winner reigns supreme and gets to become next week's host, while the loser gets relegated to lowly lame co-host. But it doesn't start there. The actual subject is also wiped off the face of the earth. So after today, we've already destroyed coffee. That no longer exists.
What?
The guitar no longer. No, wait. The sitar. The sitar no longer exists. Guitar won. Football and company still going at it. There's a
neck to neck.
I think. Did we kill Christmas lights or candles? I can't remember which one won now.
Oh,
it doesn't
I don't
matter.
Remember? Yeah.
I don't. Well, I guess we'll see next Christmas which one won. But the point is coming out of this, polytheism or monotheism is going to be the only one surviving. So we're going to end this debate once and for all. So let's roll to see who goes first. Let's roll that D20.
All right, odds are Sandeep. Even Omar.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. A lot rolling on this.
All right, you take it.
Take
okay.
it away,
all right. Start that clock. Hey, folks.
I'm sweating.
If you have, if you're joining us for this program, chances are you have dabbled in the TTRPG space. When you're playing a TTRPG, there's a lot of classes you can pick from, right? Depending on which of the sort of like big systems you're playing. You could play a druid, you could play a fighter, you could play a cleric, a sorcerer, or any of those types of folks. And let me say something. I'm tired of them. I'm tired of these little weirdos knocking on my door at 2 a.m. going, can I speak to you about my specific patron? Now, when it comes to greater powers, when it comes to magic, I believe that should be a unifying situation, something that brings all of us together. I don't need these little creeps walking up to my children while they're playing dodgeball, all right? In the playground, going, have you heard the good word of whatever tiny little patron of revenge by napkins? And I'll tell you what, if you spill some blood, you'll get magical abilities because you're pairing with my patron. I'm not in this. Like, go ahead and like just make it's Shark Tank. It's magic Shark Tank. And quite frankly, I think we're above that. I think we're better than that. I think we moved on as a civilization than having some cleric coming up and go, I can heal you, but first you got to pledge your fealty to my patron. I'm not doing that no more, folks. Vote to unify. Vote for monotheism. Over to you, Sandeep.
Okay. All right. Listen, I'm going to just address, I think, what is how polytheism gets a bad rap. All right.
Okay.
Like, there's this idea, that it's all a bunch of jokers playing dodgeball. But there's this idea that it's some way like dumber to be polytheistic. You know what I mean? Like, that's like a thing, like where it's like, oh, it's more evolved, right? To believe in one magical sky wizard instead of a council of sky wizards. Like, they're all fucking Comic-Con characters. Okay. So let's not pretend like, oh, I believe in one, so I'm so much more, like I'm so much smarter. I mean, and then I'm just gonna go straight for the gut here. The mono gods, and I'm not picking on any one religion, but they're usually so boring looking if they can even depict
It's
it
a
at all.
design issue. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. All this like false humility, like, but our gods tend to be decked out, dressed to the nines. They ride in on wild cats. They're depicted with many arms, with weapons. Your mono gods look like a dad who loves wearing socks and sandals. Okay. And like making cringy puns like, oh, what kind of drink can be bitter and sweet? Reality, right? Or, hey, women shouldn't speak in church, says 1 Corinthians 14:34. Oh, wait, that's not a pun. That's what the Bible says. Anyway, you monos are all about just praising like one guy, okay? And let's be honest, it's always a guy. You're like, I love Superman. He's so dreamy. Everything he does is perfect. And I'm about the Justice League, okay? I'm not going to Superman to help with the Pacific Ocean garbage patch. That's Aquaman territory. I got a god for that. Over to you, Omar.
While I do agree that the drip is a very good basis for an argument, and that many monotheistic figures do seem like they're the kind that post a Minions meme right before posting something incredibly problematic, I will say this. In practice, in every game I've played, there is a battle for power in the polytheistic structures for games. Great, Sandeep. That's what we need. More religious warfare. Thank you very much. I've got one guy going, if you join me, Greeble's going to get more power so he can fight Garble. And then a guy from Garble comes over and goes, well, what we got to do is we got to destroy all the Greebles. I don't need that. How about one love? Bob Marley, one love. What? That's what I'm vying for. Hey, Sandeep, we jamming. Why don't you come jam with us?
Yeah. You also shot the sheriff. So let's talk representation here. All right. Polytheism has always been about including women, right? Right off the bat. From Aphrodite to Freya to Parvati, like at least Poly like acknowledged that, the feminine exists. Where like what Mono's got at best is like, maybe the Lord is non-binary-ish, but I mean, oh shit, did we say he? Yeah, he, fuck, we always call him a he. Oh God, capitalize the he, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is like, polytheism doesn't demand belief, right? It's not about proselytizing and going around, like to sell their belief for validation. So that's the other piece. Like, we just kind of like, we are in conversation with the gods. So you're right. They are flawed. They are warring. They have issues between each other because that represents us. That represents humanity. Dude, when does worshiping just one great leader ever end well for humans? When did that ever end well? Honestly, whenever we endow one person or an entity with like all power, it ends up being pretty fucking awful. I'm just going to name a few. I'm going to name a laundry list for you. Hitler, Elon, Amazon. Alexa, please disregard that last joke. But one powerful, all-knowing being like that can do anything, see everything, be everywhere is so much less realistic.
Interesting. I'm going to channel my inner Bernie for 1 second. Okay. And I am asking you once again to consider the single payer option, one monotheistic entity to represent all peoples equally. Not how close you are to the hearth, not if you've sacrificed appropriately to a forest spirit. No. One that encompasses all of us equally, which then, for us, equalizes everyone. When you think about it, the single-payer monotheistic proposition would allow for coverage of a deity for the entire nation, for all peoples, in fact. And from hardworking teachers to hardworking folks in the factory to landlords, everyone would be covered.
Wow.
Under this monotheistic plan. With all of us together, we are unified, and with all of us together, we can prosper. Why don't we all get covered instead of just a couple of us, huh?
Yeah, that pro landlord. argument is really resonating. Ever heard "Don't put all your eggs in one basket," Omar? Like as humans, what's the best that we can accomplish alone, just as human beings? Not very much. We need collaborators. Gods need collaborators. It's more reflective of who we are. So, like for example, the Hindu gods, because I know about those pretty well. They represent the many facets of being human. They each have different personalities, different sets of skills. Liam Neeson is a Hindu god. I don't know if you guys knew that. And in that way, it's more useful of a worship, right? Like you actually channel your connection to a specific god when you need what they're good at. Are you starting a new venture? Pray to Ganesh, so he'll endow you with his wisdom. You need to stand up to a bully, be strong and fierce, then call upon your inner Shiva. You need luck? Well, then Lakshmi's your girl. So it's really all about focusing your own abilities. The gods and their abilities reside within you, and you channel them to help you with your dharma. And that's empowering. So come on down to your nearest polytheistic temple, and we'll find a great god or two that's just right for you and your family, and even a couple maybe to vanquish your enemies, because our gods are flawed, just like you. Vote polytheism.
That is time, gentlemen.
So this isn't like live, right? This isn't going on the internet, right? This is...
yeah, we're doing it. We did it, and we're going for it. How do you feel? You got Simply Safe or some other security system at your house?
Yeah. No, I pray to the one true God, Shania Twain, so we'll see how much protection I...
You know, it's funny because like while we're waiting for the vote to come in, and it's not looking good for you, but who knows?
I still believe.
That's right. Last week it wasn't looking good for me, and then there was a comeback, I think, and so or something. Vice versa.
Look at this. The tides are changing. I'm being
anyway,
imbued. Yeah,
I do. Like honestly, like I don't even know where I heard this sort of argument for polytheism, but like, because I love reading about Greek mythology, and like the way someone talked about how like, oh, it's not about like these other gods, it's about like sort of like channeling the versions of themselves within us, is when I like legitimately was like, I think that is like actually the first cool argument I've heard for polytheism. It's like, it's not really sitting there going like Thor exists and he's, shooting thunder or, birthing his daughter out of his shoulder. It's like, no, like when I need to be, when I need to be strong and when I need to be intimidating or stand up for something, like I'm going to pray to that god, like Athena.
You're channeling that sentiment.
Yeah. And like, I'm going to bring that warrior spirit out in me. And
right.
I was like, damn, that is, for me, like legitimately a good argument for polytheism. It's like, I don't know. So that to me was something that struck with me, and I wanted to to try and win favor with it.
Well,
on this.
Boy, you're in luck.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Survey says.
All we got left is polytheism.
So we got rid of monotheism.
We did it. I think it was the right call.
1914. I'm sure that 42% will not be upset with this decision.
Wow, it got close though. It got close. 58 to 42%. Dang. So all right, everybody. I mean, pick your own. You can go Greek, you can go Norse, you can go Hindu. There's plenty of polytheistic religions out there, and none of them will proselytize you. So
before it's fully gone, because it's until the end of the podcast, I do like the idea of playing D&D or an equivalent system where clerics and other deity-based spellcasters operate under a monotheistic principle. So it's just like on the battlefield, like, please, one god, bless me. And then just across, you just see another one be like, can you also give me Moonbeam? Thanks.
Am I back?
Yeah,
you're back.
We lost you for just a split second.
Hello?
Although maybe you can't hear us.
Hello.
What a twist.
Oh.
You missed a really good joke about D&D, Sandeep, I gotta tell you.
How interesting that Sandeep removes monotheism and immediately somebody takes down his internet.
Wow, fascinating.
How did that happen?
Fascinating. If he comes back and he's been struck by lightning, I do want to have a revote.
In theory, out of all gods, you only got rid of one. Like, it seems like that would be the lower risk option, right?
Statistically, right? If we're playing the numbers game. But Sandeep played and he won momentarily, and now it looks like he might have lost permanently. So, that's the danger of this round that we have of American born versus Desi side.
Difficult burden that you carry, but somebody's got to do it.
Let's see if he comes back a changed man. Let's see here.
Did I just get smited? Whoops. Hey, listen, I didn't vote. Hey, God, I didn't vote. I was just a lawyer. Oh, man. Okay, I guess I'm back. All right, well, I think we'll probably just keep that in the pod, right? Because that's pretty hilarious.
I think that worked out just great.
Oh,
well,
man.
Now that we've
what were you guys talking about? I just quickly went to purgatory.
We came to the same conclusion you did immediately, that you were smited.
Yeah.
Okay,
that was it.
Yeah.
You guys, purgatory wasn't bad. It was fine.
Yeah.
What
I will say is one big benefit of polytheism winning for this debate, one big, huge one, like on a serious level, all jokes aside, is that in the last episode of Lost, there's like a stained glass window with all the religions, and that gets to stay, because otherwise you'd have to get rid of the last episode of Lost, and that would have, Carlton Cuse would have had to go back to work to figure that one out. So,
all right, we're sparing Damon Lindelof a
Blowing
revisit to the final episode.
ABC contract. Well, folks, now it's time for our last segment. It's Desi of the Week. And I'm so excited about this one. I am so excited about this one. Let's quickly scrub out the graphic of polytheism, which was the 2 bathroom signs and then a superhero in front of a rainbow spectrum. Our Desi of the Week is one of my favorite people in the world. It's Indrani Ganguly!
Yeah.
If you've never had the pleasure of witnessing Indrani's incredible talents, look on the screen right now. Podcast folks, close your eyes and imagine the most beautiful dice you've ever seen. Truly incredible dice that look like they were brought from the Feywilds themselves. Absolutely gorgeous, absolutely incredible. Indrani Shide, amazing human being, so incredibly talented and wonderful.
Yeah, these dice are like legitimately gorgeous. I mean, they're like they move me, and I don't feel that way about things that very often. Like truly, they're really gorgeous. And she's the co-founder of Desi and Dragons, which is India's largest tabletop RPG community, and you can join this. I believe it's a public server, I think. We will put their link in the show notes. It's this awesome community. And she also creates these dice under the moniker Nonagon Dice. And she became India's first handmade dice maker. Like, that's super cool. And she's a game designer herself. So we wanted to shout them out. You know, we feel like what we're doing at DesiQuest, we want this to be a rising tide, and we feel like, you know, they're in the tide with us, and we really hope that shouting them out will be helpful. So yeah, well, lots of love to Indrani.
And I'd also like to add, Indrani and I have matching shirts. I'll see if we can post pictures of them in a little bit. I was tasked to go to Hot Topic and find the worst shirts for us to wear that were in our matching sizes. But they cook the best dal I've ever had in my entire life.
Okay.
I wanted to cry. And this was operating out of like an Airbnb, like that spice cabinet. And they were like, oh, sorry, it's not good enough. Absolutely unbelievable. Truly, all like goofs and stuff that we have on the show, like aside, it is such a huge deal for folks like Indrani and Desi and Dragons to be taking games and playing them and fostering them in India and in the general subcontinental region, changing the space and to make it more accessible for people. to make it more welcoming. I feel like we've benefited greatly from the nerd explosion here in the U.S. And to get to talk with the folks who are doing that overseas back home, that is unbelievable, and it means a lot. And I hope they all know that.
Yeah, and I view it as like, you know, us building the bridge from either side kind of thing, and we're just gonna like hopefully meet in the middle. She, you know, Indrani's a young, she's a queer person of color, and she's building this like really, really inclusive space. And I love like, you know, starting from that perspective of it already being inclusive of the entire rainbow of you know, personalities, of you know, whatever your faith, whatever your whatever you identify as, like none of that matters. You're a human being, you're a nerd, you want to tell stories, you want to be in space together, sharing your love of storytelling, of RPG. Like she's providing with her whole crew this opportunity to do that. So I can't think of a better Desi of the Week for this week. Super excited.
So there you go, Indrani, Desi of the Week.
Yep.
There it is.
We are looking up to you as we bring it back to our theme, you know? It's all about like how, right? We were talking about all about how do we represent Desi culture in our stories and narratives, and you know, so I think we look to each other. We're all like in the same class, you know what I mean? Like the same graduating class, the same year, I feel like. Of college in a way, and I think we can all look to each other for those like 4 a.m. nights where we're chatting deep into the night and smoking whatever we're smoking and drinking whatever we're drinking, and figuring out like what is our culture, what is our like, not what is our mom and dad's culture, what are we building for our generation, and for me as a kid, you know, for the next generation. So I think that's really cool. We're all on the same boat. Incredible. All right. Shall we end it?
I think that's it. I think that's the show this week. What a beautiful show we got.
I know. So that's the show. As always, if you want to see our lovely faces, all the VOD and other ways that you can hang with us are in the show notes. Please rate and comment because you know that helps. Comments and suggestions, feedback can be sent to abcdpodcastshow@gmail.com or our Discord. And for those listening on the podcast right now, we are going to sign off in mid-March to shoot DesiQuest, which we're very excited about. So stay tuned for more updates on that specifically. In fact, if you're live right now, we're going to have that as soon as we close out the podcast. But this is 3 more episodes until we shut down for a little bit.
I believe so,
and it won't be a couple weeks, but we will miss you, podcast listeners. But we'll be making something that we're really proud of. So, on that note, quick shout out to our sponsors. Why don't you grab this first one?
Our first sponsor is the illustrious corporation of DesiQuest, the TTRPG that stars us and other wonderful people. It's going to be absolutely incredible. Go to DesiQuest.com to sign up for the mailing list that will give you the up-to-the-minute news about the show. We've got some really, really cool announcements coming out soon, and some sneaky tidbits that we're going to whisper and maybe get in trouble for sharing. And that takes us to our second sponsor, which is you, right? Remember when I said that earlier? Oh, man. And so, as always, here's to our Patreons who are at the shout-out level. If you want to join them, go to patreon.com/EffinFunny. All right. The last people I'd like to thank are the Patreons who put money in our bank, which include Joshua, Ryan, Talby M, Carlo, Wuzak, Benjamin Lowe, Brandon Pace, Hunter B. Brown. Oh, shit, I have to scroll. Legion 247, Miranda Hollinger, Vaden, and Michael Longa. That's right. Thank you, folks, so much. The show's produced by Diego and Now. The show's technical director and sound designer is Delvin Neville. The show's executive producers are Sandeep Parikh and Anand Shah. This has been an EffinFunny production. Hey, on behalf of our fellow co-host Omar Najam, I've been also fellow equal co-host Sandeep Parikh. May your chakras be aligned and smothered in chutney.